Good morning, everybody. And on behalf of the CSCS team, I wish you a warm welcome to this webinar. I'm Alan O'Neill, Head of Communications at CSCS, and I'm joined by my colleague Garry Mortimer, who is Head of Operations. In today's webinar, we'll be looking at the withdrawal of cards issued under Industry Accreditation, also known as grandfather rights. And we'll be looking at the support and the guidance that is available to those holding a card under Industry Accreditation. I will start with a quick look at the strategic direction of CSCS and our role within the industry. I will then move on and take you through the history to Industry Accreditation, the reasons for its withdrawal, and the guidance and the support that is available to IA cardholders. I will then hand you over to Garry, Garry Mortimer, who will take you through some of our free products and services that will help you get the most out of your CSCS card. And Garry will then take you through some of the priorities that lie ahead for CSCS. Once we've completed the briefing, we will then finish off with answering some of your questions, and that will be chaired by our colleague Matthew Rogerson, who is also producing today's event. But before jumping into the main briefing, I just need to do a bit of housekeeping. Firstly, please check that your camera and your microphones are turned off. This should have been done automatically, but just in case they're not, please ensure both are turned off. We will be taking questions at the end of the briefing. Please use the chat facility to register your questions. Due to the high number of delegates on today's webinar, it's very unlikely that we're going to get to answer all the questions today, but please do log them and we'll post a full Q&A on the website in the coming days. And finally, just a reminder that the webinar has been recorded, and following today's event, we will issue the recording so that you can re-watch it and share it with your colleagues across the industry. So that's the housekeeping completed. Let's jump into the main part of the briefing. I'm going to start with a quick look at the strategic direction of CSCS, the role of CSCS cards within the industry. So what is a CSCS card and how do I get one? Well, CSCS cards, they provide proof that individuals working on construction sites have the appropriate training and qualifications for the job that they do on site. And by ensuring the workforce are appropriately qualified, the card is playing its part in improving standards and improving safety on UK construction sites. In the vast majority of cases, there are two key criteria for obtaining a card. Number one, you must have passed or be in the process of achieving a nationally recognised construction-related qualification. That is by and large the NVQ, but there are alternatives to the NVQ that are also accepted. Number two, you need to have passed the appropriate level of the CITB Health, Safety and Environment test, and you need to have passed that within 2 years of making your application. There are a couple of alternatives to the test that are also available. There are over 2 million cards in circulation displaying the CSCS logo. 1.1 million of those cards belong to the core scheme CSCS. But there are about another 900,000 cards or so that belong to one of the other 37 card schemes that also display the CSCS logo. And all the card schemes displaying the logo, we collectively come under the banner of the CSCS Alliance. And here on the screen, you will see the logos of all the card schemes that display the CSCS logo. Now, when it comes to the Alliance members, yes, they tend to be smaller in terms of card numbers than the core scheme, but they represent the real specialist sectors within construction. So we are talking about the likes of plant, of demolition, of scaffolding, and the plumbers, to name but a few. But just to wrap up this introduction, the strategic direction of all of these card schemes displaying the CSCS logo is fully focused on the achievement of nationally recognised qualifications. And that is 100% in line with the CLC, the Construction Leadership Council's One Industry Logo Action. That was first published back in 2015. It was updated again in 2017 and again in 2020. And all the way through this process, the CLC have maintained All cards displaying the CSCS logo should be issued on the achievement of a recognised qualification. Now, many of the organisations you see on the screen, they already meet that requirement. They always have done from day one that they were set up, or they've made some changes in recent years to make sure they comply with the CLC requirements. For CSCS, we're not 100% there yet. Some of you will be aware that we have made a number of changes over recent years. We have withdrawn the old construction site operative card, the old construction related occupation card, and the site visitor card. Those were three cards that didn't meet the CLC requirements. To achieve them, you simply had to pass the CITB Health, Safety and Environment test rather than achieve a qualification. So they have been withdrawn in order that CSCS gets closer to the day where it fully complies with the CLC's One Industry Logo Action. We have one final card to withdraw to make sure that we are fully compliant with the CLC requirements, and that is the withdrawal of cards issued under industry accreditation. So let's focus now on industry accreditation. So just a quick bit of background around IA, a bit of history to how the card came about. IA, also known as grandfather rights, this is where CSCS historically we issued cards on the back of an employer's recommendation rather than the achievement of a qualification. So in the past, an employer would write to CSCS and he would say, they would say, John has worked with me for 6 years as a construction site manager, and he fully meets all my expectations of what a good site supervisor manager should be. On the strength of that letter, CSCS would then issue John with the appropriate CSCS card. But in order to meet the CLC requirements, we announced changes to IA back in 2019. And what we confirmed at that time is that all cards issued under IA from the 1st of January 2020, they will expire at the end of 2024. And it's that group of individuals that need to put a plan in place to ensure they achieve a qualification, but by the time their cards expire at the end of 2024. Now, there's a bit more context to IA as well. We have approximately 60,000 cardholders under IA. That number is slowly reducing, but we actually haven't issued a new card under IA since pre-2010. So what we are effectively looking at here is legacy. We're looking at people who have been in the industry for 15, for 20 plus years. And it's this group of individuals that need to put that plan in place, if required, to achieve a qualification. Now, what I hope to be able to take you through now, and hopefully what this will show you, is for many of those 60,000, the process of moving off IA can be relatively straightforward. And I'd like to take you through 4 key scenarios next. So the first of those scenarios for an easy, straightforward route out of IA is remembering that these individuals have been in the industry for a number of years, and a number of them will already have achieved their qualification. So they gained their card under IA originally, but since then they've achieved the qualification, and the scheme rules have allowed them to renew under IA because it was a very straightforward process. For these individuals in this scenario, when it comes to the end of 2024 and their card is up for renewal, all they have to do is provide CSCS with the evidence that they have their qualification, and to confirm that their CITB test is up to date, and we will verify all of that, and pay their £36, and they will receive a new CSCS card valid for 5 years. The second scenario is very, very similar, only this time, again, remembering how long these individuals have been in the industry. They may well have achieved a academic construction related qualification. And again, if you or your employees fall under that scenario, it's a very simple process. And all you have to do is provide evidence that you've achieved the qualification, make sure your test is up to date, and pay your £36, and you will receive a new card valid for the next 5 years. The third scenario is those, again, recognising the time they've been in the industry, they may well have joined an approved professional body. If you're a member of approved CSCS or professional body, there's a CSCS card waiting for you. And again, it's just the process of providing the evidence of your membership, making sure that your test is up to date, and pay the £36, and you will have your next CSCS card valid for 5 years. So those are the first 3 straightforward routes out of IA. There is a fourth, and this one I find the most interesting and certainly the most challenging from a communications point of view, and that is the fact that a significant number of these 60,000, they do not require a CSCS card, and I'll take you through that scenario next. This is where, again, recognising the time that these individuals have been in the industry, they may well have changed roles, they have changed jobs. A number of these 60,000 are now working in office-based roles, they're in managerial roles, some of them are even in leadership roles. These individuals are no longer attending site to work on the tools, so to speak. They're attending site to attend a site meeting, to take a client around, to show them how the build is developing. In these scenarios, these individuals do not require cards, and that is fully backed up by the CLC's One Industry Logo Action, which clearly states that cards should only be issued to those working in core construction activities. Now, I know there's a bit of a cultural issue to be resolved around this one. We hear loud and clear that a number of people still today get turned away from site because the site insists that everybody coming through the gate should have a card. That's a cultural shift that needs to change within the industry, and we are working with the industry to tackle that particular issue and change the culture at the site gates. But in a nutshell, those are the 4 straightforward routes out of IA, and hopefully what you see for many of the 60,000, they're very straightforward processes to follow. However, we do fully recognise and we fully appreciate that not everybody fits into one of these convenient scenarios. Not all of the 60,000 will have a qualification, will have professional body membership, or have changed roles. And for those individuals, these are the group that need the highest level of support and guidance about how they move off IA, because it's that group that will have to achieve the qualification. Now, it's this group, we are hearing loud and clear that there are a number of concerns. Within this group who do need to achieve the qualification, we are hearing that they have concerns about the thought of going back to college to achieve the qualifications. There are concerns that I can't afford to take the time off work to go and achieve my qualification, and also I can't afford the cost of the qualification itself. Now, when you roll those 3 things together, there are some that we're hearing loud and clear from within this group that are saying, this is a bar that's been raised too high. I'm an experienced worker. I don't understand why you're putting me through this. This could be enough to make me leave the industry. So it's within this group where some are feeling vulnerable and they need the highest level of support and the highest level of guidance. And that support and that guidance has been defined by an industry task group. So you'll see the members of that group at the top of the slide. I'm sure you'll be familiar with all or most of the organisations listed there. This group has been meeting for the best part of 2 years, and their whole objective is to define the routes out of IA for those who need to achieve a qualification. The mantra of this group from the very first day they got together was, we value the skills and the experience that these individuals have. We do not want them to attend college, and we want to make sure that we minimise the disruption to them while making sure the funding is available for them to achieve their qualification. So this group, the industry task group, they announced their findings earlier this year, and what they confirmed at that time was those that need to do the qualification, the experienced workers who need to do the qualification, they will do it through the assessment process rather than the need to attend college. So they will achieve their qualifications, their NVQs, through assessment. So there's 2 assessment processes. The first one is the on-site assessment, OSAT. This is for those in the trades. This is where an MVQ assessor will come out and will assess the individual in the workplace. So it's minimal disruption to their day job, and they don't have to attend college. And through this process, it's likely they will achieve the qualification quicker than the traditional MVQ route. The next one, professional discussions. This is for those in supervisory and managerial roles. This is colleagues are advising me. I don't work in training, but I'm being told a lot of this can be done online. So again, minimum disruption to your day job. You can have these professional discussions while sat at your desk at work. You will achieve your qualification through those discussions. I believe there's a portfolio of evidence is required to support those discussions. But again, no need to attend college, and the qualification can be achieved quicker than the traditional MVQ route. Now, so those are the two assessment processes, which mean no need to attend college and minimum disruption. However, the other key issue that was coming out loud and clear was who's paying for this. I can't afford to pay for this qualification. This is where we have to acknowledge the work of our colleagues within CITB. They have really stepped up here, and they have doubled the amount of grants that are available to the individuals going through these assessment processes. So I believe it's for those in the trades, it's up to £1,250 on the achievement of the qualification. For those in supervisory and managerial, it's up to £1,500 on the completion of the qualification. Again, I'm not an expert in grants, but my colleagues are reliably informing me that that's an unprecedented level of grants for these experienced workers to claim. So, in a nutshell, that is the package of support that is available for those under IA. It's about on-site assessments and professional discussions. It's not about attending college. They can be achieved quicker than the traditional route, and it's about minimising disruption to their day jobs. And an unprecedented level of grants is available to help these individuals achieve the qualification. So where we're at right now, the absolute priority is this programme of direct engagement. We, Garry, myself and other colleagues, we have been up and down the country the last couple of months. We've been supporting the CITB employer roadshows. We've been getting in front of employers. We've been getting in front of training providers to make sure that they understand that this package of support is available to help these experienced workers move off their IA card. The next part of that direct engagement is we will be directly contacting each of the 60,000 via a letter, and we'll be writing to them explaining what their options are to get off IA. Every piece of communication goes out will have this web link that's available at the bottom of the slide, cscs.uk.com/IA. When you land on that page, you will see an image of 4 CSCS cards. They're the only 4 cards that anybody with an IA card could possibly have. Click on the card that's relevant to you or relevant to your employee, and it will take you through to a flowchart that sets out the options that they have to move off IA. So for now, that is it from me. Hopefully that gives you a feel for the package of support that is available. And before we get on to the Q&As, I'm going to hand you over to my colleague, Garry Mortimer, Head of Operations. Gary's going to take you through some of the products and services that will help you get the most out of your CSCS card. He will also focus then on the key priorities that lie ahead for CSCS. And when Gary's finished, we'll then move into the Q&A. So for now, thank you very much for your time, and over to you, Garry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to take you through a couple of the new products that we have within CSCS, and like Alan said, some of the priorities as well for the future. The first one we're going to look at is the CSCS Smart Check app. This is an app that's been developed by industry, by the Alliance members. Alan mentioned earlier the 38 alliance card schemes in total. So all of the alliance members are now part of this Smart Check app, and this is an app that can be used to check and validate a CSCS card on site. It's available through iOS and Android. It's free to download. And it's to check and validate that someone holds the correct card and that they've got relevant qualifications for the work that they're doing on site. It's also to help sites and employers to tackle the fraudulent issues that we're seeing within industry. There's fake CSCS cards that you may have noticed coming onto site. You've also got the issues where sometimes a card may be revoked by CSCS due to fraudulent activity. So it's making sure that those regular checks are being carried out on CSCS cards to make sure that that card is valid for those attending the site. It's also to help improve and leads to improved standards in safety and in the industry to make sure that those people are qualified. This is the first phase of the app. There will be future developments, and I'll touch on those in the priorities moving forward to make it more of a benefit to industry. And we're seeking guidance and feedback from industry as to how we can make improvements to that app to show additional information to support employers and individuals. That app was launched in April 2022. And like I said, it covers all of the 38 Alliance members. There's 3 different ways of checking and validating cards. One is NFC. So you'll know from the core CSCS card scheme, that's got a chip inside the card, whereas you can hold that card to the device and it will read and validate those details if it's a valid card and show those on the screen and show the photo of the individual. The next one is QR code. So any of the Alliance member card schemes that have got a QR code within their CSCS card, you can use the QR code scanner and validate the card that way again. And again, if it's a valid card, it will bring all of those details through, show the card details and the individual's photo. And the last one is manual entry. We know that sometimes people forget their card. There's the option to enter the data manually in terms of the surname and card registration number for each of those 38 Alliance member card schemes. That's the Smart Check app. I'll just go on to the next one, please. So the next app is the My CSCS. So this was launched in 2020. And it was along the lines of our CSCS online platform. So in 2019, we implemented the CSCS online platform for people to apply for their CSCS cards. Individuals can create an account in terms of on the My CSCS and the CSCS online. You've got 2 ways of accessing that. You've got via the web portal for accessing your account and seeing your details, applying for cards, updating your details, etc. But the My CSCS app was introduced to help support with having access to a virtual CSCS card to help try and reduce those costs in industry. So if someone loses their card, rather than having to pay for a replacement card, you've got your virtual card on your mobile phone, so you can show that site access to gain access. And this is where I mentioned about the QR code. So the virtual card within the My CSCS can be used using that Smart Check to validate that card. Again, that's a free to use app available through both iOS and Android. Once you've downloaded that, if you've previously held a card prior to 2019, you can claim your cards to the My CSCS by entering certain pieces of information such as surname, card registration and date of birth, and that'll pull your cards through to the app. You can then update all of your contact information and various other bits in there, and you can apply for cards as well via that. There's also a support mechanism in there as well, so that you can raise queries and support tickets with our contact center. So if there are any issues and concerns, then you can raise those directly through the app. And then there'll be responses that come through the app as well in relation to that. As I say, that service is also available through the web version, but the virtual card is not available through the web version. That's only available through the My CSCS, so that people can take that with them wherever they go and show that in terms of gaining access to site, in terms that they hold that valid card. Just in relation to that, with the My CSCS, it will show the qualifications. So it'll show the occupation and qualifications. So if you're unsure in terms of whether someone's got industry accreditation, Smart Check will also do the same. If you're reading the card, it will show the occupation and the qualification level. So if it's industry accreditation, it will clearly state on the reverse of the card industry accreditation, and it will state that on the card as well. If they've achieved it via other means such as an MVQ, apprenticeship, etc., that will be clearly stated on the reverse of the card as to the route of entry that was achieved for that card. Next slide, Matthew. So this is just looking at some of the priorities for CSCS over the coming year. The key one is that it's the Building Safety Act. So there are a lot of changes that are happening within industry around the Building Safety Act in terms of making sure that people are appropriately competent, and it also brings into light some fire safety training. And this is also in light of the Grenfell Tower tragedy. The area that's being looked at and what is being called is the golden thread of information. This is in terms of competence, which includes verification of training, qualifications, and competence. As part of this, there are the core occupations that are impacted by Grenfell, so there's 6 occupations in total. They are looking at in terms of a competence framework that is currently being put together. It's just being finalised and it's almost there. In terms of the routes to competence for individuals for gaining a CSCS card, but not just gaining a CSCS card. This is then looking at continual CPD and competence assessment as well. So in the future, there will be changes around that side of it in terms of the renewal requirements for CSCS cards. One of the other areas that's been developed as part of the Building Safety Act is fire safety training. So CITB have developed some fire safety training that will be available in September. It will be via an e-learning platform. It's free to access, and that's for anyone to take to ensure the standards of fire safety within the industry and make sure everyone's up to the same level and understands the issues and concerns around fire within, in particular, high-rise buildings, but in construction in general. I say that's going to be available from September. Further communications will come out around that from CITB, but we'll also be promoting that through our communication channels as well. Obviously, industry accreditation, that's one of the main priorities that we need to kind of look at in terms of making sure that people are appropriately qualified for the work they're doing on site. And we've got until December 2024. One thing in terms of those applying for cards, if a card does expire December 2024, people can still gain another card if they are registered for the qualification. So there is a temporary experience worker card that can be applied for post that 2024 deadline whilst working towards that qualification if people are only registered onto it at that point, which gives that time frame to achieve the qualification as well and progress on to the appropriate skill card. One of the other priorities is that phase 2 and 3 of Smart Check. So phase 2 is integration with site access gates. So we're currently working with various IT partners around integration for Smart Check to be able to automatically validate and confirm those cards when accessing the sites. The first phase of that has been implemented, and we're now working with the IT partners for them to embed it into their services. We will also be looking at the next steps around Smart Check, which is looking at an online portal to be able to check and validate the cards. So at the moment, as I mentioned, it's only available through iOS and Android, but we are looking at an online version to be able to check and validate those cards as well. What we'll also be looking at is other additional training and qualifications that can be shown as part of that Smart Check read. So again, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking for feedback from industry as to how we can make improvements to that app to make it more beneficial for individuals gaining access to site, but as well as for employers in terms of what they're looking for when an individual accesses the site. And we're also looking at more improved fraud prevention measures in relation to that. So if a fraudulent card is identified, then the notification process for that so that they can be investigated. Fraud is an issue within the industry. Since the introduction of the Smart Check, we have had notifications of fraudulent cards being turning up to site, and there is a current process to notify those, but we're just looking at ways to improve that. We have our own internal fraud investigator at CSCS, so any instances of fraud, we take them all very seriously, and they should be notified to CSCS through intel@cscs.co.uk, and we'll investigate those instances of fraud. The last one is the My CSCS app. As I mentioned, we've already got the virtual cards in there. You can gain access to those now, so anyone gaining access to site can use the My CSCS, but we are looking at improvements in relation to that as well. So again, we're looking for feedback from industry in terms of what improvements we can make around the My CSCS app. We'll also be looking at building in push notifications so we can give more detailed updates around the industry and changes that will impact individuals as well as employers moving forward, especially around the likes of the Building Safety Act, competence frameworks and competence assessments and CPD that's going to be required. Just on to the next slide, Matthew. So in terms of the next phases around, I can't see this, go on to the next one. Sorry, we're now on to the question slide. So what we're going to do is Matthew's going to take over the questions in relation to it, and he's going to manage that side of it. We're not going to be able to get through all of them, unfortunately, but what we will do is at the end of this, we'll go through all of the questions and put together answers, and we will update those on our website. So we've got all of that list of questions for you. So we'll just hand over to Matthew now.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. The first one has come through from a few people around the IA funding for the training, just whether there's any support available for those who are self-employed.
Yeah, I can pick that one up. That's a question that's come through quite often. The funding is for those who are registered with CITB, although I have been in a number of these sessions with CITB grants people in the room, and they have confirmed it's not uncommon for somebody who's self-employed to have a conversation with their employer who can put them through the qualification and then draw down the grant. So that would be a suggestion to anybody who's self-employed. You're probably working with multiple employers, those that you've got a good relationship with, have that conversation with them, and CITB say it's not uncommon for an employer to put a self-employed person through the qualification.
Thanks, Alan. Georgie Gaynor next, sort of asking about people who don't have qualifications and are just going for the labourer card. I know it's a problem we're aware of. Rather than gaining a qualification, you know, what CSCS kind of doing about that?
Do you want me to take that one, Alan?
Yeah, thanks, Guy.
Yeah. So yeah, there is an issue around the labourer card, and that is one that we are looking at with industry and working towards making sure that people are appropriately qualified. In terms of the CSCS card, a lot of that is relying on the sites checking the CSCS cards. That's where we're working with industry to make sure that people are checking that people hold the right card for the work they're doing on site. And again, this feeds into a lot of the work that's being looked at around the Building Safety Act and the competence framework to make sure that people are appropriately competent. So there are going to be changes around that in terms of legislation around employers making sure that people are appropriately competent, have got the right qualifications. So the CSCS card is one way of checking, obviously, that those people have got the correct qualifications for the work they're doing. CSCS will also be linking in with a lot of the building safety work to make sure that any additional competence assessments, CPD, are built into the requirements around CSCS when people apply for cards. We are also looking at those people that are applying for labour cards to get a better understanding of why they're applying for the labour cards. Let's say we're looking to reduce those numbers because, as I say, that there are issues where people are just applying for a labour card as an easy card to apply for when they should be applying for the appropriate card for the work they do on site. Obviously, there will be some people that go down that route and apply for the labour card, but more and more sites are starting to check and validate that someone holds the right card for the work they're doing. So as time goes on, it may be a case that you'll be refused access to site because of that labour card. So that's just something to bear in mind.
Thanks, Gary. A couple of people asked this, you know, saying they hold an SMSTS and a CITB test. So, you know, why does that not qualify them to kind of renew their IA card? I don't know if there's anything you could kind of mention on that.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Guy, on you go.
Do you want me to go? So there's the triple STS and the SMSTS. These are 3 and 5 day health and safety courses through CITB. They're predominantly just around the health and safety aspects of site, and they're not competence based. It's just a training course around those health and safety elements and not around the actual role that someone is doing on a construction site. So because of that, the triple STS and SMSTS are not accepted for a supervisory or management card. You'd need to do the MVQ, which does the competence assessment against all of the aspects of the role that someone is doing. It's assessed within the workplace. There's various evidence that you can provide in terms of references, letters from employers. You can have a site visit from the assessor, etc., professional discussions. There's various ways of showing that evidence. And as Alan mentioned previously, it's not about going back to college. It's about showing that competence to an assessor in terms of evidence in that.
Thanks, Garry. So Robert Ray asks, does MCIOB count as a recognised accreditation as a professional body? And it kind of ties into what a few other people are asking in terms of where can we find a list of those professional bodies that people may be members of that qualifies them for a PQP card?
Yeah, so again, on the CSCS website, there's a page for all of the card types, and there is the PQP card page. On that PQP card page, you can search for a list of all of the cards that are the professional bodies that are available. It gives the full list within there, and it's just a case of searching through that. I think there's 60 odd professional bodies that are accepted, most of the construction ones. If your professional body is not on the list, they can apply to be accepted for a CSCS card. They need to go through the full mapping process to make sure that it meets the relevant competence assessment criteria. But you'd need to get in touch with that professional body for them to make contact with us and go through that mapping process in relation to it. In terms of the MCIOB, so that is a level that's accepted in terms of the CSCS card. So that's for the professionally qualified persons card. Anyone applying for that professionally qualified persons card would either have to have passed the CITB Managers and Professional Health Safety Environment Test or the CIC Health Safety and Environment Test, and then provide evidence of current membership. The key part around the professional membership is that membership for professional bodies must be renewed on an annual basis to confirm continual CPD. So it must be current membership that's provided as part of that application process.
I think what we should also do, Garry, is when we send out the recording, we will send the links to those relevant pages on the CSCS website, so you can find all the approved professional bodies and all the other information.
Thanks, Alan. John Slade is asking about HNC and building studies. Why is this not acceptable for a manager's card?
So again, a HNC is not a competence assessed qualification. It's an academic qualification, which is why it's not accepted for the manager's card, but it can be accepted for the academically qualified person's card. So again, you can pass the Managers and Professional Health Safety Environment Test, so provide a copy of the building studies, HNC, and you can get the academically qualified person's card for that. To gain the appropriate level skill card, the manager card in relation to it, it would have to be the MVQ within that relevant occupation that's achieved.
And Howard Jones, who's renewed his gold card, which has an MVQ linked to it. However, it wasn't renewed for the whole 5 years. Any reason why that might be?
Would need to look at the particular instance in relation to it. If it held an IA occupation on it as well, then it would be renewed only for the time period to 2024 because it's still got that IA occupation on it. Also within the card scheme, there's a grace period for renewal. So if people up to a year after expiry, if people renew after the expiry, it still gets the 5 years from the original date of expiry. So it may be that. So we just need more details to have a look at that for you. We can have check the system.
Great. This came up 1 or 2 times as well, actually. Asking about losing city and guild certificates from some sort of decades ago. What the process is around lost certificates.
Yeah,
so
I can pick.
Oh, sorry, go on, Alan.
I can pick that one up, Garry. Yeah, so we do. It is a common problem, and we often hear of colleges, awarding organisations not being able to retrieve those old qualifications. But we do have an appeals process on our website. Again, we will send out the link. If you're struggling to find the qualification, go through the appeals process, and we will work with awarding organisations, CITB and others to retrieve those qualifications on your behalf. And we have had a number of successes over the years in tracking down those old qualifications. So I would recommend that you go through the appeals process. If you, your college, your awarding organisation cannot find your original certificates, go through the appeals process, and we will do that work for you.
Thanks, Alan. So how long ago have you had to have passed an MVQ for it to be taken into account when applying for or renewing a manager's card?
So an MVQ doesn't have an expiry. So it's a valid for life qualification. So it doesn't matter when you've achieved that qualification. As long as it's the relevant qualification for the occupation, it can be used to apply for the card.
Thanks, Garry. We've got time for one more, I think, with a couple of minutes left. How do I go about finding assessors and training providers?
On our IA webpage, there is a link to, or an option for finding training providers. So there's the awarding organisations and then links to those awarding organisations, training providers as well. I know there's a few people in the chat also been mentioning around training that they're offering in relation to it as well. But yeah, there is a link within that. It also gives further information about the qualification and how to achieve the qualification as well.
Thanks, Garry. That's about all the questions you have, but like you say, we'll answer those on the website if they're not there already.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And we hope that has provided you with some insight into that package of support and guidance that is available for those who are under IA. Again, thanks for your time. We will be sharing this video in the coming days, and we will be updating the Q&As on the CSCS website. So any Q&As that aren't already on the website that we've received today, we will add them into the CSCS website. And when we send out the video, we will share the relevant links for those questions that have been raised in today's briefing. So thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.